So I'm going to walk you through how you take a standard typeface, customise it and craft it to create a bespoke logo type. So through the work we'd already produced, we'd already decided on a typeface called Cold War Modern that was developed by A2 Type Company. As the basis, it gave us the right sort of look and feel that we were after. So we've just typed this in, and we like the way that it was left aligned, and we're going to look at how we'll start from there, and we'll look at how we can maybe develop that later as well. So while it's still editable text, a really useful thing to do is just increase the letter spacing. There's going to be a number of stages to this, so we may have a few stops and picks it up from somewhere else as well. Okay, so what this means is by increasing this, if we do any sort of adjustments once we've converted the type to paths, it means that there's room to play with straight away. Just saves you a little bit of time. Okay, so the next stage, once we're happy with that, is to convert the type to paths, and do that using Apple Shift O. That turns type to paths. Just zoom in on it. There we go. The next point we want to do is something we'd already discussed within the studio, is adding a bit more weight to the typeface, and by doing that as well, it will help start making it our own and creating the proportions that we want it to work with. So, good way to do this is in path, offset path, and we can start deciding how much we want to offset it. At the moment on the preview, it shows you that's far too much, it's closing in everywhere, so we can probably go try 0.5. This is where the preview, keeping it all live, is really useful. Yeah, that's probably still a little bit too light, somewhere maybe around 0.9, maybe 0.95. What we're looking for is the areas not closing in too much. Don't worry about the S, because we'll remake parts of the S as we go. We just want to make sure that the counters are clear in certain areas. So that looks good, we're about happy with that. At this stage, it's really handy to get rid of the original path that existed, so we can get rid of that. And another really useful tip at this point is start dropping some guides in to work on, making sure everything lines up. So we're getting baselines in for everything. Obviously it's really spaced at the moment, don't worry about that, we'll go back and readjust those parts when we get to it. And you can always go back and do all the much tighter tweaks, but just for now, just as a work in progress, that's a good way to start. Okay, so in this second part now, we're going to look at how we maybe make some of the characters our own, look at developing these parts and giving the letter forms the shapes that we want. So I think what we'll just concentrate on is, say, the S and the A from the state. So we can go in and start removing some of the points. Now that's going to create an open path, but we're happy with that for now, because we can join these back up together. It's really handy as well to go into keyline at this point, so you can see exactly where things are. So you've got two open paths there at the moment. You want to carry on the same sort of angle. So the 2 points you want to join them, go back to your pen tool, remove that one. You're looking to keep all your verticals, so you can just keep adjusting things. It's all these minor tweaks. And all you're trying to do is make sure that you keep a closed path when you finish your letter form tweaking. So yeah, all we keep doing, working our way around, just keep closing the path, adjusting things, and if you're seeing things in preview, you can really see, in keyline, you can really see whether things are running horizontal, vertical. Do we need to keep making any smaller adjustments? So already you can start seeing how some of the letter forms are beginning to take the shape that we want. If you're knocking through, sometimes it's just as easy to draw a new shape. Then go up to Pathfinder, make sure it's at the front, punch it through, remove the points you don't want. There we go. And all the time you're looking to keep that closed path because it'll help. Okay, so that's how we go back in a vector-based program and start taking points out, making the letter forms our own. In the next step, we'll look at how maybe adjusting some of the proportions and looking to how we space those letters back together. Okay, so picking up from the previous step, we've gone through and we've adjusted certain key letters. So say the S, we've made that our own. The A, we've worked on as well. The E, we've developed a bit of a cut, and the F that mimics that. The M has changed as well, and the N as well. If you remember in the original, it has a straight bar across the top. We've gone for a diagonal. Now, a really handy thing to do when you're trying to work out the proportions or with letter forms as well is, as many times as possible, common elements repeated or used again, especially on a typeface like this, where or a piece of type where it's quite structured and it's quite ordered. It does make life a bit easier. So, say for the A, when you're trying to work out one side of the A, say the angle on the side, once you're happy with that, a really useful way to make sure you get it right, I'll just show you part of the process that we go through, is to work on one side, get the angles as we want them to be. I think if you see on here, they're slightly different, so the outer or the inner edge is more acute than the outer, so it feels like it's going to more of a point. So once you're happy with that angle, you can do is that, use the Pathfinder to crop it, flip it, bring it into position, and then union them and combine them like that. The same can be done with T and even with E's from top to bottom as well. We've added a little bit more weight to this as well as we've worked on it, getting the proportions. And what you're looking for is consistency. So, just very quickly, the way of showing you. You can see that the width there, exactly the same there. We're ensuring that it's equal on all the letter forms. What's really useful now is when you can start doing some of the more important adjustments, seeing how the letter forms actually sit together. Again, we're looking for a consistent letter spacing. I'm doing this quite quickly. Ideally, the beauty of this being vector based, and you can just constantly keep adjusting, tweaking, working with it, whittling it away until you're entirely happy with it. Just turn those guides off. And even to the point where we started developing this kind of movement through the letter forms as well. By everything being, vector and so easy to use, you can just keep adjusting, seeing what works, until you're happy with somewhere. And then what we'll do in the final stage is just show you all the parts that go into the letter forms in one piece. Okay, so in this final part, I just thought it'd be really useful to kind of go back over some of the bits we touched on, and just give an overview of the work that we did on the letter forms and the type, just to try and make sense of some of the work that goes into this part of the project. So you can see where our letter forms have ended up now from the original. I'll drop some guides in so you can see how the proportions are working, how there's the correct sort of letter spacing going on. You can see how the proportions of the letters together are working, how their line spacing, how their position is all working together. And I thought it'd be quite handy to just show you the width that we talked about, making sure everything was consistent on the verticals where needed, and also just showing you all the adjustments that we actually ended up making. All the cuts on the diagonals we changed on the corners, down to the cuts into the letter S, across the letter A's, how we adjusted that, the extra cuts that we put into the E and the F, the adjustment we made to the M, even down to adding the diagonal in the end as well. All of these bits all came together to make the type, give the type its own identity, and hopefully the brand its own identity as well.